Welcome to Endly Introduction. Endly is an automation and end-to-end testing framework helping to automate numerous engineering processes. These range from setting development environment on the local laptop or staging to more complex end-to-end comprehensive testing automation, including database comparison or even stress testing. This presentation walks you through basics of the Endly workflow. A typical Endly workflow has two sections, init and pipeline. While the first set variables used within a workflow, the latter defines collection of task or action. Within the task node, there is a special action attribute that triggers action call to API with specified service and method. In our example, we've got task 1 and task 2, and we can see how this node is being mapped to the service call. So task 1 calls workflow print method with message parameter, and task 2 call SSH executor service run method with target and command to execute. I think it's the best time to first run our Hello World workflow. Okay. Okay. So there we are. We just run our first Hello World. And I think it's a good time to move to the next one. The second workflow is a little bit more complex. First, it uses workflow parameters with params namespace, and it defines task with the subtask. Okay. Workflow parameters can be supplied to the workflow via command line, and $expression within the workflow will be automatically expanded with the variable value. Okay, so let's try to run it. So now I'm passing name parameter and key1 parameter. And now we see hello world, Endly, and we're seeing subtask 1 test. Let's see what happens if I don't pass those parameters. They being unchanged. Okay. You can run Endly with relative path, or you can specify even the absolute path to your workflow. Okay. You can easily inspect any Endly task, and finally you can selectively only run the task that you are interested in. So instead of running all the tasks, I just select task 1 and task 3. Okay. Proxying action node to API service call is a generic mechanism that works with all the Endly services and can be easily extended to any third-party APIs. When you start defining workflow, you need to know what service and method can be used and what is the method contract with required and optional fields. To find out what is currently supported by Endly, you can simply run endly-s. So that gives you the list of all the services currently supported. And in our example, we've used workflow, service, and print method, so let's quickly check a contract. So contract is simple. We can use message, error, and style. So far, I've been using only message, but we can experiment with any of those attributes. Important thing to know is that you don't need to define a workflow to test workflow service action. You can also use the command line mode when you just do -run, you just provide a service action, and then you provide the field as a parameters in the command line. So let me check an error. Yeah, we see we've tested the error field from the contract, and it just prints on the red. Yeah, we can try also other action, or yeah, I've tested the validator service with asset method. Another thing you need to know is you can delegate request portion of your contract to separate file, and you can do this both when you test your service action from command line, or when you embedded this within your pipeline. So here is an example of supplying array for the actual and expect value for the validation. Let's look at the slightly more complex example. So we'll be looking at the executor service. So let's see what kind of action it offers. It's open, run, extract, and close. The really one that you might be interested is the run. So let's quickly run the contract. Yeah. So it also comes with some examples. You can nicely copy, and you can use either JSON or YAML format. So let's look into this workflow. So we've got the init section that defines our variable. We've got the default section, which appends specified attributes to every single action node. And then we've got the actual pipeline with our task. So the first task is the initialization, which is running whoami and echoing to the standard output. Then we run cat on the etc host, and we extract alias from it. And then last two action is just debugging and printing out the result of the init. So the result from this action, the response of your contract, can be accessible via $init, the name of that action node. And similarly, for the second action, you can access host info. Okay, let's try to run it. Yeah, and then we run. When we're using executor service, blue is the standard input and green is standard output. And every single action gives us some information of the debugging and additional detail. Okay. As already has been said, we can delegate the request for our service code to separate file. And in this case, you can use both YAML and JSON file. So let me quickly run this other example, and I'll walk you through quickly. Yeah. So really what happens here, we just copying and the introduction master readme to local TMP, and the task to check it exists and print out all the information about that file. This is what it is. So thank you for watching part 1.